Yeah, great.
Whoa, this ain't going.
Down the side.
But I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. Well, hello, welcome Bee Nation. I'm Ricky Rourke, and this is the Bee Connection. I'm glad to have everybody on here tonight with us so far, and we decided to get us a little special guest tonight with Brian Lee here tonight. So con him on coming on tonight. So that was great. And that's something else I continue to do is just pull some of you guys out of the chat and beg you to come on to the show so we can torment you. So I know because we want to hear about your bees. You know, that's what it's all about, and that's why we're here tonight. So anyway, just a little bit about what's going on in my bee yard right now. Did a bunch of splits last week. And so I'm just kind of on the hold for about everything. Put a couple supers on some hives, and for the most part, just kind of, just trying to get the spring going for us. We've had frost the last couple of days, which not been really bad. It hasn't hurt our trees really bad or bushes, but things are really starting to bloom. Our apple trees are blooming right now, so it could definitely do some damage if we had a hard frost. So hopefully that's all gone. Glad to see the wife in the chat tonight. So she's working second shift now. So maybe Rick can quit his job. We'll see what she says about that. But anyway, so Melissa, how's the bees going in yours and Tom's apiary right now?
They're just busy. Like we have, I think Tom said he's been keeping count, not me. I think he said we've made 60 splits.
Wow.
And we were at a yard Friday, I think it was Friday or Saturday. I can't remember. And he's like cutting swarm cells out. As he's cutting them out, the queens are emerging. And I'm like, no more. Like I'm done making splits. I want no more splits. I'm over this part of spring. So we actually just started caging the virgins and just sold them as virgins. And I think he like 6 of one hive he had emerge as he was going through it. And then he was at one of our other yards. What was it? Monday or Tuesday, we were there and he went to cut the grass there. And as he's cutting along the fence line, there's a swarm of bees on it's a cattle farm. And we have like a one area in the cattle farm that's fenced off. Anyway, the bees were on the vines that are in the barbed wire fencing. So we collected that swarm. And then he went back the next day to that same yard to kind of put more supers on or check something else. I can't remember. And there was another huge swarm in like one of the cedar trees over there. So just in that yard, he's collected like 2 huge swarms. So got bees everywhere.
Time of year right now, for sure.
We put supers on. They've got some of them have 2 and 3 supers on right now, and we're not even like into our honey flow yet. It's just kind of trickling in, and they're filling these supers already. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is really crazy. Like all of our trees are not bloomed out yet, and I'm seeing supers fill up, and it's like, I know it's time for that to happen, but where are they getting it all from, right?
Well, we have tulip poplars, the one in our yard anyway. Our tulip poplar is bloomed out. Black locust is like just just starting, and a lot of it's like closer to the city, like out by us. You might see a few blooms here and there, but I have no idea where it's coming from. Like there's not that many tulip poplars around, so I know it's not all tulip, and it's clear. It's like what I'm looking in the frames. It's completely clear, almost like it is black locust.
Wow.
But I know where these colonies are. There's not enough black locust blooming for it to be as much as they're storing away. So I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Spanky, how's things going off the mountain with you, brother?
It's going pretty good. I've been feeding a lot of the smaller colonies, so like the ones I caught and stuff, and they've been sucking down the sugar water and building some comb out. So they've been doing pretty good that way. I've about run through the 25-pound bag I bought, so they're going to have to start pulling their own weight here soon.
They're gonna have to pay for rent, huh?
Yeah,
But
no doubt.
I'm hoping that they'll build out some comb, and then I'll be able to get them to build out more comb with what they got coming out of the forest, you know, the little stretch of forest and the fields and stuff around.
Yep. And that's something I think is really important for new beekeepers. Anybody that's on here that might be a new beekeeper is if you got a hive that you can have it draw out comb for you, man, that is so important. If you got 2 colonies or 3 colonies, use one of them just to draw your cone out. You'll see that will pay off big dividends down the road. So, Lee, what's going on down there where you're at, where warm country's at?
Super, and more super. I'm hoping Sunday I'm going to be out there. If we're not working, we're scheduled to work Saturday, but Sunday I'm supposed to be off. So I'm hoping to get out there and pull some honey. I pulled all my extraction equipment out of the shed yesterday, got the pressure washer after it, cleaned everything up good, dried it down, put some of the food grade grease in the bearings, and it's ready to go. So I'm hoping to start pulling honey Sunday and put them supers to the side. Hopefully I can keep everything out of them this time and not get no more wax moth during the next couple weeks, because our tallow is already starting to get tassels on them, which they still kind of standing up right now. They're not hanging down or bloomed out, but it's getting close. And I'm going to need room, so I'm going to start emptying supers out. I got another 100 frames on their way, be here Saturday.
So down there where you're at, Lee, do you try to hit the flows and try to say, this is tallow honey? Because I've basically dropped all my supers off and spun them out. Now
Pretty much. Now, without getting your honey DNA tested, technically, I can't say that it's tallow honey or privet honey or anything like that. I still have to call it wildflower. Mm-hmm. But I can basically say, hey, this is what I think the majority of the nectar source would be at this time of the year.
Right.
And all my buckets that I have that I put my honey in are red, but I have different color lids. So I have white lids for my early spring honey, which would be kind of the blackberry and privet. And then I have yellow lids for the tallow and orange lids for goldenrod during the fall. That way I can kind of differentiate buckets at a later time. If I go out there and pull a bucket, I know what's in it.
Wow.
Whether it's a real light honey, a medium, or a dark.
I guess that's going to be pretty important for what you're doing down there, because you're selling in those farmer markets and you kind of want to know what kind of honey, or someone says, hey, can I have some more of this honey? I can go to that certain bucket and get out the honey that you want. Correct?
Exactly. What I was doing at one time is basically assigning like numbers, lot numbers to the side of each bucket that I have a thermal laser printer for. And I could tell you by them numbers what date that honey was pulled, what yard it come out of, and what hive it came out of.
How many times do you extract, Lee? That you can do like specific yards and specific time, you know what I mean?
Last year I only extracted a little bit one time. Now, if we got a good year like we seeming to have this year, I can pull my privet and the blackberry off kind of together. And then the tallow at the end of June, beginning of July, I'll pull. And if we have some goldenrod in the fall, I'll try to pull some goldenrod, but I try to leave a little bit of honey on for them for the winter rather than having to feed sugar water. Now,
It's
I do
so messy and so time consuming. I would hate to do it more than once a year. Like we just wait till the end of July and pull everything at the same time, and we'll kind of grade it according to color, not really plant or whatever. Grade it according to color, and then extract it that way. We'll extract our lightest stuff first, and then our medium, and then our darker stuff.
Trying to see if I can pull a picture here. I've showed it a few times on here. It's like way down in the I think this is going to be it. Let me get it.
Smart.
Well, he's looking for that. Has anybody ever had smartweed honey? I've never heard of it.
I've never heard that one.
I'd like to eat some smart weed though.
Especially if it helped me be a little bit
We
smarter.
help out. Yeah.
This was just two of my honeys here, kind of a
Yeah.
lighter spring honey and then the darker fall.
Mhm.
But usually the summer, the tallow is going to kind of be almost in between those two. But as far as weather down here, the whole rest of this week, right now, we're still feeling like 81 at 7:15 at night.
Wow.
Now the
Whatever.
rest of the week, we're going to be mid to upper 80s with
We
a
have
little
yet
bit
to
of rain
hit in the
coming next
80s.
week.
So that's not fairly.
I don't know. Sometimes I prefer a little cooler weather, especially when you go to pulling honey and hauling heavy boxes. That's the part that I find bad. When you putting those empty honey supers on, they're real light. You got a nice breeze outside, good temperatures. But when you go to pull them off, they're heavy and it's hot outside.
That's why you get you some teenage boys.
Yeah.
Or
That's right.
Yeah. Well, before we get
Speaking
to
of
oh, look at that.
Virgin Queens, Tom pulled this one out of a hive today. Probably
Oh,
can't
wow.
see her.
I can see a little something moving in there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see that.
There-
Attendance. Yeah.
yeah, he pulled this one tonight. Found her walking around on a frame.
Looks like another split.
Virgin Queen for sale. You have to come near St. Louis to pick her up, though.
Now, you guys did put on Facebook, what, $10 or something like that for some Virgin Queens? Was that?
I think it was like 15. That was the 6 that we pulled that I told him I wasn't making any more splits with.
No,
And so we were handing out queens for the EMBA, our club, on Saturday. And somebody asked if we had any more queens, and I had brought those with me. I go, well, I have 6 virgins. If you want to buy 6 virgins, he's like, yep, I'll take them. I'm like, they're yours. Have fun.
No doubt. So before we get to Brian Lee here, Spanky, you want to talk to him a little bit about what you found at your place? Some of these interesting looking honeybees that weren't quite honeybees.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if he wants to pull them, I'm not a very good picture taker. I use a phone, so my pictures are not the best. So we've got a local walking park, and we go and walk it. And in one little section, I saw hundreds of these bees flying around. And I finally managed to catch a good enough view of them to see that they were bees. They weren't something else. At first, I thought they were like the mason bees that I've got here at the house, but they were a different coloration. And I saw this, I guess you would say, kind of balling activity on the ground. And so I was like, well, I've never heard of solitary bees balling together like that. I really wonder what these are. So I went and did some research, and some solitary bees, whenever a female emerges or a female gets with a male, all the free males in the area will essentially ball them because they all want to get it on. That's what I was seeing, was all the open males in the area converging. And so that's not my picture there. I think it's the gosh, what is it? The University of Maryland or something. I've got the website on my phone, so I can tell. It's University of Maryland Extension. That's where that picture comes from.
Hmm.
But I was talking to a biology instructor at work today, and I said, I said, I know you know about bumblebees. What do you know about solitary bees? And I showed her some picture and video of them, and she said, "Oh, those look like what is it? I got it right here. Rufous back cellophane bees." And I was like, "Man, she just pulled that out of nowhere." So if you scroll down a little bit on that website, you'll actually see that picture. And so they are classed as like a digger bees. They actually put their babies in the soil. So it was fascinating. My phone couldn't do justice because they were so small, but there was hundreds of them just in this one area, just flying around back and forth. They weren't flying like honeybees. That's why I didn't think they were honeybees at first. But
So is they smaller than honeybees, Spanky, or is they about the same size?
I'd say they're about the same size. I mean, there's probably a size difference if you held them up together, but to me, they look to be about the same size. But I found them fascinating because that I don't expect to see hundreds of these solitary bees whenever I go walking.
Right.
Most of the time you're lucky if you see a few bees out and about.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You never know. Are they spraying weed killer over there? How are they maintaining all those plants and stuff? So it was fascinating to see all those hundreds of bees going back and forth, back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely different. Something that you don't normally see, that you might get a call, say, "Hey, I've got honeybees," and them not actually be honeybees. So,
but yeah, those they only live like a month, so they're very short lived.
you got sweet Harlem honeybees on here now. They've won some awards for their honey, so hopefully they get some good honey this year also.
He's won awards for his wax too.
Yes, he did. You're right.
Mr. Jamie is something else there.
Yes, he is. Very talented. It was a pleasure. I was walking out of the Hive Life conference that year, and they were loading up, and got to talk to them. And it was definitely a pleasure talking to those people. They are fine people. So,
yeah, Jamie and Brandy are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
People from Kentucky, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said that, and I think that's funny because like our tulip poplar has been blooming for like a week and a half, and we're just now starting to see black locust. So ours is like opposite of what theirs is happening.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see our black locust bloom before we see our poplars bloom. So that'll be kind of interesting here. So Brian Lee, what you doing, feller? Tell us a little bit about yourself if people don't know who you are.
Oh my goodness. So I live here in Central Alabama, Birmingham. I grew up in a little place called Alabaster, Alabama. My grandfather kept bees, and of course I knew nothing about them growing up. But I had no idea what he was doing. All I know is that he had that wonderful nectar of the gods, right? So,
Yep.
I grew up here in Alabama. Attended Troy University. Other side, I had opportunity to play college football at Troy. Helped pay for my school, and then graduated. I'm kind of a geek by nature, so I have a computer science and computer engineering degree. I work for one of our a utility, if you will, Southern Company, and again, I'm in the wireless world. Believe it or not, we built our own wireless LTE network for the utilities, so Alabama Power, Georgia Power, Mississippi Power, and so forth. And I'm responsible for all the data devices. So I'm the product development manager. And so, but my son, how I got into bees, really, my son, Blake, my middle son, he had the opportunity to get an internship at NC State, and he worked with Dr. Tarpley. And they were actually, he was trying to find a cure for American foul brood. And so while he was there, he was able, proud father moment here, he was able to discover 2 new bacteria. He was able to name the bacteria. And so if you get a Shaggococcus or a Velmacoccus bacterial infection, that's my son Blake. He named it Shaggy and Velma. And I can't make it up. So he's got a little sense of humor like his father does. So, but he comes home, he says, Dad, we've got to get these bees. And this was right at COVID. And so a lot of people were working from home. And I said, hey, how hard can it be? Your grandfather kept bees. So we started off, like everyone else, we get a package of bees. We place those in a hive. And of course, we've got to get the best hive out there, right? So we get online, do our research, and there's this thing called the flow hive. Mm-hmm. And so we spent $700 on this flow hive. We get the package of bees, we put them in, we come back 2 days later and they absconded. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't feed them. We just had frames in there with no foundation. I mean, it was, quintessential new beekeeper, right? So we're like, okay, well, let's do it right, because Dad's out about $135. So we would do this right. And so we found a gentleman that actually sells nucleus hives. And so he come to be my 7th grade science teacher. And so we bought 2. He was also the president of our local bee club, Shelby County Beekeepers Association. So I joined the club, and that was 4 years ago. Now we've grown from 2 hives. We have 21, and I try to keep around 15 to 20. But at one time I had close to 30 hives, and that's just way too much for a hobby beekeeper, for a backyard beekeeper. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I had the opportunity to be the president of our local club. So wow. Yeah, if you're ever in the area, and you guys, we meet every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month. So if you're in Birmingham area and on a Thursday, we'd love for you to join us.
That's awesome. And how long was you the president there for, Brian?
So I'm president this year. I'm acting president, and of course, I've only been keeping bees for 4 years, so I fit the bill. I fit the criteria. I was breathing, so breathing, and you can run a meeting. So they've graced me with that honor. So and
you were the only one that raised your hand, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I've got the one that's got stuck on the forehead. So. No, we have a pretty good club, I'll say. We got a lot of master beekeepers. We have roughly about 160, 170 members. Roughly about 55 to 60 of those show up. So it's not too bad. It's the same purpose, and I guess you could say the reason why we have the club is to educate more about this wonderful honeybee, right? And the benefits and the reason why we have to make sure we nurture these young creatures and take care of them. So, but yeah, we obviously have some mentors in our group for Hive for Heroes. So I'm very proud about that. So we have a couple of veterans that are in our club, and we mentor. So it's just been quite rewarding, and I just love it. So, yeah.
You just kind of fall down that rabbit hole, and you just say, well, I wanted some bees, and then I wanted some more bees, and then they swarm, and here you are, right? You're a president of a bee club and didn't even know that was going to happen.
I had no idea. I mean, 4 years ago, I mean, I probably could not tell you the scientific name for the honeybee, right? And but now here I'm leading a group, and it's just, you know, funnier things have happened. So
Yep.
All right, give us that scientific name.
all I can say is apis. How about that?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is my 4th year beekeeping. So I'm still learning, obviously. We like I said, having close to 30 hives has been quite challenging, especially when you're managing them yourself. I'm sure a lot of people on the stream can relate to this. You had to start somewhere. If there's been a mistake, I've made it. I'm the poster child for mistakes. I was the guy that was, feeding bees when I shouldn't be feeding them. I was the ones that was chasing swarms the first 2 years because I was a bad beekeeper. I didn't go through my bees like I should. So I've had, mite infestation, wax moth infestation, small hive beetles. So I guess say it's called baptism by fire. So I've kind of seen it all. I do remember, I tell this story, and my grandfather, I remember coming outside one day after school. It was close to the school, so I'd walk to their house, and he had about 50 acres. And I get to his house, and he's in the pasture, and he's got like a tire tool, and I can't remember. It could have been a hive tool, and he's tanging, right? And I'm like, what is he doing? What is he doing? He says, bring me a box. Bring me a box. We're going to get this swarm. We're going to get these bees. And I watched him tang, I guess that's what it's called, these bees from the air, and they landed right there in the box. It was fascinating. And yeah, I was like, so there's a swarm going on in the backyard. And what do? I tell my wife, I said, go grab a pot. Go grab something. And so I start tanging, and I watched that swarm go all the way, and it lands right in front of me in a tree. Now that's probably where they're going, but hey, I felt like I was the master, right? At that point in time. So that's just infectious in its own. When you catch a swarm, and so this year I've of course had my swarms. I don't know if I've got a picture. I've got a swarm box close to my apiary just for that reason. And I've caught, I had a 2-frame nuke, and there it is right there. So you can see my house in the background. We kind of live on a mountain here. We're like the start of the Appalachian Trail. Well, not the trail, but the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, sure enough, those jokers decided they didn't like that 2-frame nuke, my mating nuke, and they swarmed into the box. So, well, they stayed there for a couple, I let them stay there for a few days, and I come back out later on. It was over the weekend, and unfortunately, Lee, I think I got that picture where the box had fallen, and so I was cleaning up bees. So again, there's a thing called Murphy's Law, right? I like to call it the Lee luck. Okay, relate. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. So yeah, so my nail gave away, and then there's my wonderful swarm box with bees lying everywhere. So again, guys, hey, I'm not perfect. Again, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. I'm the poster child for probably what not to do. But hey, that's how you learn, right?
And that's what makes you a great president of a bee association, because you know what's wrong, correct?
Yeah, I definitely know what not to do. No questions. But it's been a good time. What I really love about beekeeping, and you guys have said it before, just the camaraderie and the fellowship with fellow beekeepers. I'm amazed by how everyone just wants to help one another. And I grew up in Alabama, in the country, so we all we all live by the golden rule. And so it's just, gosh, it's just so, especially in the state of this world's in and this nation, this country, just to have the fellowship with the beekeepers, and it's just it's just rewarding in itself. So that's what I really fall in love with, is people like yourself, everybody on the stream here, just building those relationships, and just that undying and willingness just to help out. That's what I love. That's what I love about being a beekeeper.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And you do some other stuff, and I finally got my
okay, yeah. Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. So for the ones that don't know, I actually made some hats and so forth, some merchandise, if you will, for Ricky, and I just dabble in that. I have a couple of lasers, and I have the 3D printer. Again, I'm a geek, right? So since I'm in product development, I'm on the wireless side. That's why I have 3D printers and all this stuff. But anyway, the United States Postal Service, they're in kind of disarray right now, and I think I shipped it on the 28th, and Ricky got them today. So I'm just proud you got them today. So I was about to fire up the machine and burn you some more patches.
Yep, that's exactly what you said. I was like, oh, just hold on, please. I don't need them that bad. So, but we are going to give one away tonight. So if you guys will stay tuned, and probably about 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to give away one of these beautiful hats that Brian has done. And then we're not going to let Tim and Hannah get in here again, because they've already got one. Yeah. Well, Tom, how have you been doing, man? Has Melissa been keeping you busy?
I think that's an understatement. I guess the best way to describe it is I'm like a one-legged man in a butt kicking competition. Yeah, so it's been busy. There's been a lot going on this week.
Yeah,
solving some problems and pushing forward.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
But you know what? You can always get in the bees and have a good time and just kind of relax with it. And, they're not gonna. They're always gonna be true to you, right?
Yep.
Yeah. We've been out working pretty hard here lately and such. So just getting back in from dealing with some of our own bees and phone calls and joining everybody here and listening to some great bee chat.
Yeah, that's what Brian was just talking about. Just the camaraderie, everybody coming together. Let's have a good talk. Let's talk about our bees, and it's great to have these guys that are in the chat to come on and talk to us, and just let's let everybody learn about these people, and let's talk about their bees and learn something together. So that's what I like. So.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that beekeepers, I don't know if it's a mindset or just a type of personality or what it is, but it just seems like by and large, it's just a good, solid group of folks, right?
Yep.
Just some solid people. So far I haven't met a beekeeper yet that I don't like,
Yep.
And they can be from anywhere from younger all the way up till,
I know one that I kind of get tired of sometimes. I'm not going to mention any names, but
hey, Lee, you're supposed to be on my side. Quit pointing.
Yeah. So, Ryan Lee, if I'm not mistaken, you got some kind of new hive that you haven't ever tried out. Is that correct?
Oh my goodness, that's right. I do. My boys for Christmas, actually for my birthday and Christmas. So my birthday's on December 20th, and so it's like I share a birthday with Christmas. So anyway, they actually unbeknownst to me, worked with Ricky, and they purchased me a horizontal hive. They most certainly did. And I've had the best time with it. As you can see, I kind of I put my laser to good work there, and that's our logo for our Shelby County Beekeepers Association. So I've got that on the back and on the front. I'm loyal to my Troy University, so I have my Troy symbol on the front. But yeah, they're doing quite well, Ricky. It was kind of touch and go there at first. I made some splits, and I was able to get a couple queens, Polynesian queens from Hawaii, some carnies, and they really didn't like her at first, and so I kind of struggled. I actually had some queen cells, and when I made the splits, I harvested. There we go. There's the front. I had some queen cells that I harvested when I made the splits. Rather than just destroying them, I put them in my incubator, hatched some virgins out. I put a virgin in there, and well, they ran her off. And then, of course, I had a queen castle that I placed a few of those virgins in, and they mated. And so I finally I took one of those queens and combined them with the horizontal. And there she is she's going to town, doing a great job. There we go. So, yeah, that's it's been a lot of fun. Never really, it's kind of an experiment for me for the horizontal, but playing sports and so forth, I'm dealing with a lot of sports injuries. My lower back, my knees, and having that horizontal hive. It's funny to say this, well, I guess it's not funny, but I look forward to going through that hive because it's not as painful, okay, as the others. But yeah, that's I guess that's one of the reasons why the boys wanted to get that for me as well. They knew how much I love the bees, and they wanted me to be able to enjoy it. So
yeah. Well, when they called me up, they didn't quite say that. They said, Dad's getting really old. We're afraid he's not going to make it. And
that's the truth there, no question. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they said so. Well, Bruce Jennings said something about you, and we thought we might get one for Dad. So but
I've got 3 boys, and they're Andrew's my youngest, and I kid around with the other 2. I see it took me 3 to get one right. So Andrew was the one that kind of orchestrated everything. But I got good kids.
I think I might have been a little bit of a bad influence on there too. For you,
my gosh, yeah.
Making that mead.
I should take my camera and show you what's in the refrigerator here. Blake, my middle son, the one that actually had the opportunity to work with Dr. Tapley at NC State. So at Hive Alive a couple of years ago, he met up with Lee, and I think he was able to taste a little bit of your mead. Well, Blake being a scientist, okay, so that's what he's getting his degree. He was actually PhD in microbial biotechnology. He came home, and it's like I had like a 5-gallon of my honey gone, and he's making mead, and he's stockpiling this mead. And he's making blackberry mead, strawberry mead, mint mead. Oh my gosh. So yeah, thanks, Lee. I appreciate that, pal. Yeah.
Hey, you got a good supply now.
Yeah, I guess I do. Yeah. But no, it's good. We've enjoyed it. So that's you're a good influence, Lee. There can be a lot of other things you could have gotten into.
You could have met Ricky,
Hey, just tell him if the more meat he wants to make, though, the more he has to get out there and work with you and the bees to get that honey.
That's right.
That's right. They do. When they come home, and actually they're coming home this weekend. They're looking forward to helping Dad out going through that because I need them because it is on here in Birmingham. Privet's opened up. We've got tulip poplar opening up. We've got blackberry kind of ending. You can see sumac starting to grow. It's not popping out, but that privet, when it's on, it's on. So today I went through one of my hives, and oh my gosh, they are filling up the supers. So this weekend I'm gonna have to add more supers. No question. No question.
I know when our privet started here, I got some hives out there with 5 supers on them, some of them with 4 supers. So Sunday I'm probably going to be extracting. Yeah. Now a lot of our privet that had popped out early, it's already starting to kind of turn dark and wilt down, but we still got some other privet that's starting to bloom out. Yeah. So it's still got some coming in.
Well, one of the things I learned from you guys here on the chat, keep in mind, I'm kind of a newbie beekeeper here. is a lot of people were saying, if you do anything, try to stick with, equal equipment, the same equipment. And so I took heed to that. So rather than having, mediums as my supers, I went with deeps. So I have one SKU, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I didn't start off that way. The first few hives I did buy mediums, and oh my gosh, it was just a nightmare to try to keep up with. So, because when you have the same equipment, you can pull a frame up, and so the bees can go work the super and so forth. Well, I could do that, with a medium, but they'd start drawing out the bottom. So that's what I did, and you guys taught me that. So so I'm another benefit of the streams like this, where you're able to learn from other beekeepers. So
That's what I've said before. I mean, if you can stay with all the same size equipment, it works out better for you. That way everything's interchangeable. But with my back, believe me, I would love to be able to do deep supers, but I can't handle it.
When you do the same size equipment, when you do deeps for your supers, how do you keep your brood frames separate from your honey frames, or do you not care if they get mixed up?
So I run excluders. But what I try to do is, to try to get them to work the super. I'll pull a frame of honey up on the edge. Luckily this year since it's my fourth year, going in my fourth year, I had some comb. And so obviously I left the excluder off, and the queen got up there, right? So that's what I did today, is that when I noticed the queen was started laying some eggs, and I put the excluder on. And they were there. Where she didn't lay, they are filling up the box. Now, I do something. I really got to stay ahead of them, because I'm running 8-frame equipment because of my back. Okay, so I'm trying to stick with all 8-frame, and then deeps. So I'll let you know. We'll see what happens. But that's kind of where I'm at. When my mentor, Mr. Ball, my 7th grade science teacher, I went and worked his apiary with him one time. He had 10 frames. And after about a day of lugging 10 frames around, I realized, no, I'm going to stick with my 8 frames. So,
That's
so
the same
what I
we
do.
do.
Yeah.
we like the 8-frame stuff. We started with that.
We run deeps
Luckily.
and mediums, though.
Yeah, we do deeps and mediums. That just helps us to keep our honey frames separate. But occasionally, like you said, when we start to draw out some comb in our honey supers, which are mediums, sometimes the queen can sneak up there, and that's okay. We just put the excluder back on, let it hatch out, and it'll backfill.
So I don't mix now keep in mind, last year was the first time I really got some comb. Mm-hmm. So what I did is that I kept that separate, if you will. So I just stored my supers, like everyone else, using, the microcrystalline, or the mothballs, whatever.
The paramoth.
Paramoth. There we go. Paramoth. So I did that in my basement. Okay. I'm a backyard beekeeper. Mm-hmm. I don't have the beauty of having a pole barn. I think the homeowner association would frown upon that, but I just kept them in my basement, and I kept them separate. And so when it was time to have my supers, I just pulled. Now I have no more comb; they're gone. So I've had to add, frames above. So I've got 2 deeps. I don't know if I got a picture of that, but I've got a lower apiary and an upper apiary. In my lower apiary, I've got double deeps for my supers going right now. And so what I had to do there, since I don't have comb, I try to get them on early so they can start drawing them. There we go. That's a good picture. So that second, the second half on the left, you see the double. I just put that super on this past weekend. And it's they're already, and I brought a frame up, right, to try to get them to encourage them into that super. And when I checked it today, they're already starting to put, nectar up there. So, and they're drawing out the other frames. So I think I'm doing things right. You guys tell me. I mean, I'm still learning here. So, and one thing I've learned is nothing's absolute with beekeeping. Forget it.
We're not.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely not correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like when you think you've got it figured out. No. And what you're doing might not be what works for somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing that we do, which maybe I misunderstood what you said, but when we have frames that aren't drawn, if that's the only super box that we're putting on is undrawn frames, we won't put the queen excluder on yet. We'll just leave the queen excluder off until they start drawing those frames. As soon as they start drawing those frames, though, we'll shake all the bees down and then put our queen excluder on and then put the supers back on.
Okay.
That's
But
pretty
that
much
way-
what I was
That way we
doing
don't have
before.
to pull a frame up, you know,
Mhm.
and they'll still go up there and start working that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I was doing before, but then I've just kind of gotten the habit now. I don't even run the queen excluders in there anymore unless I'm doing comb honey. Now, if
Yeah.
I'm doing comb honey, I don't want them laying anything in that.
Now with our brood boxes, like if we're adding a second brood box and it's just undrawn foundation, we'll
Yeah.
pull a frame of egg larva, whatever, up to get them to move up to that second brood box. But as far as the supers, we usually just leave the queen excluder off and stack those undrawn supers on there.
Mhm.
And then as soon as they start drawing them, we'll shake them all down and put
Yeah.
the excluder on.
That's kind of what I did. So for the first super, I didn't have the queen excluder on at all. And then when I noticed that she got up there and she began to lay, then I put the excluder on. So that should encourage them, right, to go take care of the
Right.
larvae and so forth. So
Yeah.
Brian, do you use plastic foundation in all of your frames?
I do.
Yeah. We do the same. Yeah, that's a great product. When that's what we have in all of our honey supers is the white acorn heavy wax, and we have zero issues with the bees drawing that out. They go to it, and they just, I mean, honestly, during a flow, those bees can build up that box, and I mean, maybe not fill it, but they'll have a lot of those combs built out in a few days. I mean, during a heavy flow for us here in St. Louis, Missouri. And you said you were down south, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in Birmingham,
Okay.
Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, so I went through one hive today. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask this for the group and everybody that's on the chat. To over super or under super?
That is the question.
That is the question.
I think that they will fill it faster if you under super,
Okay.
but how much faster are they going to fill that? Is it worth the lifting that heavy super just to under super? We pretty much always just over super. I mean, we have 150 hives. Well, now we have 150 hives because all the flipping splits that we've made, but probably close to 100 of them will need to be supered. And it's just, that would be too much work to lift all those supers to under super every time that we have to throw a new super on a hive. So do they fill them faster? Probably so. Do I think it's worth it for us? Absolutely not.
Brian, I would say it would be worth it for me if I get Melissa to lift the super and I stick the one with the frames on, then it's worth it all day long, you know? So
The last couple supers I put them on top because of just time. But would I prefer under super? Yeah, I prefer under super. To me, if they're going into an empty super, they can put the nectar directly into that right then versus having to climb through supers that are already full to get to an empty one and then start storing nectar.
Now, one thing that I think that could be like a compromise is if you get an upper entrance and put that, on top of your queen excluder right below your supers, then at least they don't have to go all the way through the brood boxes and go through the queen excluder to get into the supers. If you did, I know we've never used them, but we have them, some like landing board shims that you can put on your queen above your queen excluder and under your supers to make that upper entrance. So you don't have to drill holes in your box or anything like that.
So let's say you're a new beekeeper, right? And you don't have drone comb. All you have is plastic foundation. So you're saying you would over super, but some people say under super, and that because they'll have to go through, maybe pull out. So I don't know. I over supered for that exact reason. My back was killing me. I had lifting that joker off. I just put another one right on top. Now I did go frame up, I did do that, So hopefully it would entice them to go up to that top super and start drawing
Yeah.
it.
I mean, like I said, I think if you under super, it probably is going to get them to draw it out faster, store honey faster, but it just kind of depends on your situation. You know, for us, to me, it wouldn't be worth it. But to somebody who maybe is just a backyard beekeeper that has a handful of hives, it may not be as big of a deal to lift those supers off and go ahead and under super.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious. You talk to 10 different beekeepers, you get 10 different answers. So
Yeah.
I think it sounds,
Brian, we usually get 2 different answers just when we're talking about bees to each other.
Brian, I think you need to do a little experiment there and try one hive next to each other and try it and just see what happens.
All
and
right,
then come back to us. You know,
that's a good idea.
Just get your son Andrew to lift the box for you.
Yeah, there you go.
They're gonna be home this weekend. They'll help out.
Yeah, I need to get Blake, and I think I see Blake in the chat. My middle son.
I think you got both.
Yeah, Blake, you need you and Andrews need to come on home this weekend. Help your old father out. You know.
What you do, Brian? You go out there and supervise. Have one of them lift up the heavy super, and have the other one put the empty super in.
There you go. There you go.
I'm liking this. Yeah. I'm liking this.
You hold the camera and record while they're doing it.
That's
to make
right.
a video.
Teamwork.
Makes the dream work. So.
Yeah, I think Mike's got it right here. You start that way. By July, you're done, doing that. Same thing. You just put them on top at that point.
Well, hey, I got another question. You guys ready for this one?
Sure.
All right. So going through a hive, okay, you just split this hive probably, let's say in March. I'm asking for a friend, by the way. Okay. You split this hive in March. It built up. They put another deep on. They built up. Put a super on. Drawing that out. You go through an inspection, and lo and behold, you've got swarm cells on the very bottom. Question is, okay, the flow is on. Do you go ahead and move the queen and make a split and then let them make their own queen? Do you buy a new queen, put it in? If you have a resource hive, do you take the queen from the resource hive and put it in? Is
the cell capped or is it not capped?
Yeah, there's let's say there's three cells that are capped. 3 cells that are capped. This is what I ran into today. So,
well, wait a minute. I thought you were asking for a friend.
Yeah,
Your friend went into today.
I'm an honest guy. I'm an honest guy.
Yeah,
I couldn't carry it any further. But
I think for me, Brian, I'd take my queen out because if I lose her and you don't get one of those virgins to return back, then you've lost, right? And if you take her out, then maybe they're not going to swarm, and you're not that far behind, and you still may get some honey. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I think that you can pull a queen during a honey flow, and they'll still produce the same amount or even more without a queen.
Okay.
But I would ask a question for your question. What is your friend's goal? Is his goal to keep the queen that he has? Or is she a 2-3 year queen that maybe he doesn't care about as much, and you just take her out and let it requeen itself? Or maybe or do you take a couple of cells of frame and make a small little split off to the side in case you need a resource hive? Do you do that? I don't know. It depends.
So my friend he's kind of selfish. He's kind of selfish. he wants his bees and he wants to eat his honey too.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of what. Yeah. So he wants So I'll tell you what he did. And I hope I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to this, but I made a split. I made a 5-frame nuke out and moved the queen to the 5-frame nuke. Of course, made sure everything was set up correctly in the nuke. And I left. One of the cells did not look as good as the other two. I destroyed that one and left those 2 cells in. Now, I have a resource hive. I have 3 resource hives. Okay, I got a 5-frame nuke, another 5-frame nuke, and 2 2-frame mating nukes that I've already got queens in. And so my thought was, okay, I'll harvest those cells tomorrow and just go ahead and pop that queen from one of the resource hives, let them go queenless and then keep things going.
Mhm.
So I can be selfish. I got my bees and I can eat my honey too. What do you think?
I think it sounds like a good. Yeah, I like
think
it.
you did good.
Okay, good.
What do you think, Lee man? Spanky?
I would pull the queen and put her into another hive. That way they think they've split. But if you worried about them staying populated, I would take the cells out of there, maybe have a split somewhere else and put a mated queen in. That way they can continue laying and stay on track.
Okay, that's another thought too, is I could take that frame with the cells and split those out, like a 2-frame mating nuke.
Mm-hmm.
I've got like 10 2-frame mating nukes. I decided to build one day.
Well, I mean, if you pulled the queen and only pulled 2 frames,
Yeah.
you're not really depleting your population that much. Like that's not really going to make a big, slow your colony down. And if those cells are capped, that queen is going to emerge shortly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she's going to be mated and start laying within the next 2 weeks, give or take.
There we go.
So your workforce really isn't going to be that much affected, and they're still going to be out foraging and bringing nectar in during that whole time. So I think so long as you pulled that queen and at least the 2 frames, I think you should be fine. And then if your virgin doesn't make it back, you can always reintroduce that original queen and those 2 frames back into that hive.
Oh, okay. There we go.
I mean, you've got options there.
Yeah,
Lots of options.
I like options. See, I'm selfish. My bees.
No, that's good.
Yeah. So.
And and then if you wanted to go even further, you could harvest those cells, like the other 2 that you thought were you said there was 3 and you thought one wasn't viable. So you destroyed that one. So you can leave the 1 cell and let that emerge, take that other cell and harvest it and put it in your incubator and start a whole nother, nuke with that one if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's where I was at first. That's where I was leaning because I didn't want to take any more brood than I have to out of that hive.
Right.
And so I was just going to cut those out, pop them in my incubator, let them hatch into virgins, and then hopefully by that time I can go grab a frame or 2 and put it into my mating nuke or something. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was but I do I could steal a frame and a half or 2 frames. I don't know. I got options. That's good.
So that's actually where this virgin came from today, was from splits that we had made, a month ago?
On the 11th.
A few weeks ago. And we're putting supers on now. And Tom found this virgin in the hive today. So, we got some that are doing that too. We put supers on and they're still making swarm cells, even though they've already been split once.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, and Steve Amos had a good point. He said, I could just throw a frame of cat brood from a resource hive. So,
Sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, more population.
Yep.
All right. Well, see, I'm learning. You guys are teaching me. Y'all are learning me well. Y'all are learning me well.
I feel like you were learning us.
No.
We're all learning each other.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's throwing ideas back and forth.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what this bee chat's about. Just giving ideas. What does everybody do? How was their experiences? Yep. What did they look like at the end of the day?
Well, we say this all the time. There, like you said before, you ask one question, you're going to get 50 different answers, right? But it's because everybody has different goals also. My goal's not the same as yours. My goal's not the same as Tom sometimes. And then also our environments are different. Where we live constitutes different approaches to do things. Some things that we might do here might not work where you are, or, up north where other people live. So you kind of have to take everybody's advice and kind of make it your own. that's one of the things I like about watching people on YouTube is like, even though they don't live in my specific area, I can take things that Bob Binney says or things that somebody in California or down south or whatever, and just kind of configure it so that it works for where we are.
Yeah, when I first started, like I said, I'm kind of new in this, going in my 4th season. If it wasn't for Cayman Reynolds, Bruce, Bob, I mean,
Yep.
if it wasn't, Greg Burns, I wouldn't know what to do. To be honest with you, because I went through a beekeeping class, and it was one of the one-day beekeeping class. You only learn so much.
Yeah.
And the other, I missed out on the other beekeeping class. So, but if it wasn't for like I said, this community, I mean, I wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, you said you started during COVID, so you started what, 2020?
Yeah, we got our first package of bees, and I think it was April of 2020. Yeah, April. Yeah.
You've actually been keeping bees longer than I have. Then I didn't start until I think it was June of 2020.
Now you use that word "keeping bees" lightly, because keep in mind what happened. So we put the bees in, and they absconded like within.
Been hosting bees.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. So it was, and then of course we got a nuke, and I learned, and I got 2 nukes, so I could watch, look at one and compare to the other, and so forth. So
that's what I always recommend. If somebody's getting into it, get at least 2 colonies or 3. That way you can see if one's doing better than the other one, and you'll be able to notice if something is wrong.
Well, and you can share resources that way too.
Yeah.
Well, that you can help equalize.
Yeah.
But if you've only got one colony, and say they look decent to you, and another beekeeper comes over there and like, man, what's wrong with your bees? It ain't hardly anything there.
Yeah.
Then you know something's wrong. But if you got 2, you can judge them.
Yeah, you can have a failing queen and not even realize it because you have nothing to compare it to, because you've not seen anything different. You think it's just that's what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. So Brian, you just had the one that you had purchased. You've only purchased 1 package, correct? The other ones were nukes.
That's right. Yeah, just 1 package. That's right.
And then I'm just curious, moving forward, if you wanted to do that again, would you consider buying a package, or would that never be an option again?
No, I'm partial to nukes now. Number of reasons. One is, of course, what I experienced. Right, that was about $135 that I might as well just kind of threw in a fireplace. Right,
Yeah.
They just left. They absconded. Now I understand there's a learning process to this. Right, so. But I've also listened to other people within our club. A lot of our master beekeepers. When you get a package of bees, and I'm not saying they're not bad, I'm just saying they're not going to be for me moving forward. Because how they shake bees into a package and then they add a queen. That's really not their queen. And so with a nuke, you got really an established colony, and the acceptance is far better, in my opinion, than a package. We have a beginner's beekeeper class that our club puts on, and that's what we kind of encourage our beginners class. I mean, if you want to go with packages, just understand the risk there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for $20, $30, $40 more, you can possibly get a nuke.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably have better success rate. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that's my opinion. There's others out there who say, I'm willing to take that risk because I've kind of been doing this for a number of years. I know how to feed the bees. I know how to encourage or encourage the bees to draw comb, what have you. So, but I'm a backyard beekeeper. I'm a hobbyist. So I don't want to take that risk, if that makes sense, because I don't have the luxury of other bees that I could possibly go make. So, yeah.
Everything that you just said is the exact information that I usually pass along. I try to give the pros and cons of a package to a nucleus colony and try to explain what is good, what is bad about them. And maybe you can have everybody can have a different learning experience with a package, maybe than what you did, Brian, or Melissa and I did.
Yeah.
Ours wasn't quite like they absconded, but they wanted to requeen within immediately once they started drawing a little bit of comb on the frames, and she started to lay, they immediately wanted to supersede her. And I've heard of that often, that happening, because again, like you just said, you do have a mated queen, and you do have 3 pounds of bees. That 3 pounds of bees could have been shaken out of 4 or 5 boxes. I mean, maybe not likely, but it is very possible that you could be shaken out of multiple boxes. And here's another thing that people sometimes may not think about. If you have an experienced package builder and they're honest, they will probably try to shake the correct age bees into that box based upon what frames that they are on, right? But unless they were just completely old and tattered, had roughed up wings, most people are not going to be able to tell if they took a bunch of old forager bees and shook them all into a box, knowing that they were going to be dying soon. Most new or beginner beekeepers would have no clue what they're looking at. And you could be getting, in my opinion, an inferior product, because at that point in time, you're asking an older generation of bees to build comb. You're asking them to help to raise
Bee nurse bees.
Yeah, bee nurse bees. And I mean,
and forage.
Much like I think that us as human beings, as we get older, maybe you want to have grandkids come over, but you don't really want to raise kids anymore. That's not really your goal any longer, right? And I don't think bees are really any different than that, So I think there's several different things that you could think about when you're getting a package. And I'm not saying that package builders are going to throw you an inferior product. I just think that there is definitely, like you said, Brian, a lot more risk involved. And I do believe that for a little bit more money, you get a lot more value for that dollar bill. And you're even, I always say, from a package to a nucleus colony, I would just say you're probably 30 days ahead of schedule. So for just a little bit more money. But again, some people want to have that learning curve, and I'd say, hey, knock yourself out, go for that,
Yeah.
To each their own.
Like Keith is saying there, if you've already got the stuff, say you got frames and everything that's drawn out, a package, might not be bad, but I prefer the nuke because you get the frames, you get the comb already drawn, you get the brood that's already capped in there. They've already got resources. Everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, so I know a lot of like clubs and I don't know, they try to push packages on new beekeepers. Push isn't the right word. They try to encourage them to get packages because they want to see them grow. They want the new beekeepers to experience the whole learning thing, from the bees building comb to, the first eggs to the first larvae to, all this stuff. But at the same time, I think it kind of maybe sets them up for a little bit of heartache or failure at the same time, because I think the chances of abscond and supersedure are so high with packages that, I don't know. I would just prefer new beekeepers get nukes and watch them draw frames that they're going to have to add when they move that package into a full-size hive, than just, draw everything from the start. So I don't know.
You guys are going to love this. So with our beginner beekeeping class, we have a 7-week course. And we start like in January. And there were some that were like, hey, we want to get bees, but do they really cost a nuke? Does a nuke really cost $175, $180? I mean, does it? We're like, yeah, you might be able to find one, $10 or $15 cheaper or whatever, but still, yeah, that's in the ballpark. I've seen them, over $200. So they're like, well, what's the best way for me to get bees? Swarms. So they invested. We had 3 of our students. They invested in swarm traps. They bought 2 swarm traps. They cost $60 each, $120 package bees. And I'll be doggone if they did not catch a swarm. So awesome. So there you go. So they, $120 package of bees, but see what I'm saying?
But again, a swarm is a cohesive, colony, right. That's their queen. You know what I mean? They're not going to have to get used to or accept that queen. So they're already ahead of the game with a swarm versus a package,
That's right. So they, and they're just tickled to death, right? They're new beekeepers. They got to experience it. And then it's like euphoria, right? They're just like, well, I want more. I want more. So
The addiction starts.
that's right. That's right. So it's so I'm so happy for them. We have a young lady. She's moving. She got like 20 acres, and she said, "Well, I'm just gonna. Where do I put it?" And we go through that in class. The best way to put a swarm trap, where to face it, how to bait it. Swarm rustler, whatever it might be, lemongrass, whatever your preference is.
Sure.
And I'll be doggone if she didn't catch one. And she is just like, giddy as a schoolgirl. And, I'm like, well, okay, well, now it begins.
Mm-hmm.
Now it begins. So.
Well, and see, that's really nice too, because generally speaking, most swarms are fairly docile, so you don't have an aggressive nature coming out, at you, where you might have a bunch of older bees potentially in a package that aren't being so nice or something. So it may break somebody in a little bit easier. I mean, you're not trying to create some false sense of reality where you're never going to take any stings, but you also, again, backing up to kind of what Melissa said, and I shouldn't try to be talking anyone out of a package, but I do have a preference, and it sounds like we all kind of have somewhat of a preference there and see the value in a nucleus colony. But just some of the little downfalls, I guess, that play along with the package. It's just, I don't know. I just see, again, like we're all saying, there's a lot more risk versus potential reward there. But it's you don't want to set somebody up, feel like you're setting them up for failure, and then they bought all this equipment, spend all this money, spend $1,000 or $1,500, and just throw it in and say, "Oh, I'm done." There's been a couple people that have come along and actually I was looking at buying some of their equipment out, and I asked them, I said, "Just curious, why are you getting out of it?" "Well, we tried once, and it's this, that, and the other." And then we talk a little bit more about bees and stuff. And at the end of the conversation, a couple people were like, "Well, I'm thinking about maybe I should." And I'm like, "Look, I came all the way out here to pick up this equipment, and I wanted to leave with it. But if you seriously want to consider this, I'm like, go for it. You already have this equipment here. Do it. And then, here's my card. Reach out to me if I can do anything to help you out. I'm happy to coach you through something or get you involved with the club." Somebody that can help mentor you along. If you really and want to get into them and continue with it, just work on a little more education, reach out to people, clubs. There's a lot of different sources out there of great value. Stick with it because it is very rewarding. At the end of the day, there can be upsets and things that are just out of our control, but it can be very rewarding as well.
Yeah.
I done a live with Bob Benny last year when we were at the Hive Life conference. And his favorite saying is tenacity. Keep going. And we got to talking. Some people get in it, and then they find out in 1 year, oh, well, all my bees died or nectar wasn't good, and they get out of it and sell everything cheap. Well, they're out money.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping bees is like farming. You're going to have good years, and you're going to have bad years.
Yep.
Who's to say that first year that you're starting ain't a bad year for everybody?
That's right.
And then that following year would be a good year. If you try it for a couple years in a row, I mean, you're going to learn. Any beekeeper knows you got the good and the bad.
Definitely.
If you start on a bad year, it puts a bad taste in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start on a good year, everything's nice and peachy now.
Right.
Well, sometimes you got to take that little hit at the beginning to gain the following year.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
Spot on.
Probably one of my biggest, I don't even call it a pet peeve, but pet peeves is people who just jump into beekeeping and don't do like any sort of research whatsoever. And because I'm like, it's such an expensive hobby, right? It's not cheap. But they do this and then they complain about it or they lose their bees. They're like, I'm like, but you didn't like educate yourself on anything, so how are you expecting to keep these bees alive when you didn't do any sort of research or join a club or find a mentor or anything like that, So
you're right.
Every time we talk to anybody, we're always like, we're always pushing, find a club. I'm the vice president, Tom's the program coordinator for the EMBA. If it's a great club, this is when we meet, we can hook you up with mentors, we point them in the right direction for YouTube people to watch, because there's good ones and there's bad ones out there. We all know that. So we try to point them in the right direction of who to watch, who gives good information and stuff like that. Like, just so you can at least get some education. Or we had one lady who's like, well, I read some books. That's good. I'm like, you can't learn beekeeping from a book. Like, it's a very hands-on, you need to, at least be able to see pictures of what you're supposed to be looking at. Like, words aren't going to do it justice.
Books are a good place. Books are a really good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
But she was gung ho that she only needed these books, and that was going to be her education. Like, okay.
Well, let's give away their hat that we got tonight. That I got from Brian Lee, and this is what they look like. I think we decided hashtag hat, and he did make me a special one that man, look at that shiny. Oh, I tell you what. I'm not going to let this one go because I'm sure this is one that he said was a little special. So I'm going to keep that for myself. But we are going to give this hat away right here. So we're not going to let Tim and Hannah have one because they've already got one. So I think I'm going to have to give them two because it's Tim and Hannah, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
I lost out on that. So, but anyway, hashtag hat. And we're going to give a drawing tonight for a hat. I appreciate Brian Lee for doing such a good job. They are beautiful hats. So we do appreciate that very, very much, Brian.
My pleasure. Here we go.
There we go.
Yeah, Brian
That's
does a
it.
good job on those hats.
Yes, he does.
So, Brian, is that like a piece of leather that you would somehow is that burnt? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a piece of leather. Obviously, it's tanned, and it's pressed on. So I have a laser engraver. You pretty much you engrave the design, and then the laser will actually cut out the leather.
Oh, okay.
And then and then I have a hat press, and you just you press it on. It's just a hobby, to be honest with you. I mean, I'll be glad to, if anybody's interested, I'll be glad to help you out. It's just a hobby. I just love giving back to you guys that do so much for the community, the beekeeping community. It's just a little something I like to do just to give back. So
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think you give somebody a really nice hat at the conference, if I wasn't mistaken. Somebody's a how do, I don't do, or something like that. You give him a certain hat. So.
Oh, yeah, what was that? Silver
is that
dollar white trash?
AKA silver diamond white trash, maybe?
Yeah, that was it.
Poor Mike Berry.
Is Mike in the chat right now?
No,
Is Mike in here?
I don't think so.
If he is, he'll probably get on to me.
Where's the destroyed?
Nope, he's not in there.
Oh.
And that was hilarious. I'll tell the story behind it. If you saw the design I made, it was kind of a bee with a diamond and so forth, silver diamond white trash. I actually designed that through AI, artificial intelligence. So
I sent it to John.
I can't take all the credit. See, I'm a nice guy. I'm an honest guy.
Yeah. Oh, Grammy got one too, she said.
That's right. I made Grammy one. Everybody needs to have a hat with your logo on it.
That's
everybody
right.
does. So
I tell you what, Grammy's getting up there. I think I seen today she had 1,500 subscribers. Wow.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think Tom and Melissa had a fancy hat, if I'm not mistaken, that they were working on the other day while we're doing the hashtag hat. Yeah, it is a fancy hat. Lots of character to it.
I just sent it to Lee. I don't know if you can post. There it is.
So, I just sent it to Lee too. My picture's better.
So there's an explanation with this. If this gets back to John Hill, we did not purposefully destroy this hat. What I did is I got a couple of those hats when we were at
Nobby.
And I missed out on the cool hive tools that he had, but I got a couple of those hats and I gave them to my boys. And my one son, Isaac, was wearing that hat. I had him out working the other day. He was actually...
Pause. He wears that hat every day when he works. So
that one or the clean cut lawn care hat.
he wears that hat.
So anyway, he had that hat on, and he was running one of the commercial mowers that I've got on a large property. And I had him out there working by himself. I was off doing something else. But anyway, he sends me this picture of this hat and says, yeah, by accident, a limb pulled the hat off of my head and somehow, I guess, flipped it in front of the machine. And he ran it over with the mower. And that was the result. So I said to my son, I said, he did a really good job of sharpening those blades up because those are really clean cuts. So anyway, that was the result of,
So this is the new work hat he's been wearing this week. You can,
Beekeeping
anybody
with
know what
Natalie.
it is? Yep.
Beekeeping Natalie, yep.
that's
Yep.
it.
So that's his.
Oops.
Hey, Ricky. that's the new work hat he's been wearing this week.
When we had Natalie come in earlier this month and do a speaking engagement at our club. And so she asked if she could bring a little merchandise, and we said, absolutely, bring it on. So we went there, and Melissa spent, I don't know, a little bit of money with them, and got some of their merchandise.
You have to support your speakers, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
So, so that's what they got.
Melissa, did you text that to me or email?
I Dropboxed it to you.
Oh, okay. That's why. Tom sent me that one by.
I know Tom can't manage that Dropbox thing. That's too technical for him.
It was too easy to send a text message. See how fast it got up there? It worked just fine.
Yeah, I don't see the Dropbox one yet.
So how many we got for the hashtag hat there, Lee? Do you know yet?
Let me get back to that window.
It's on there.
We're at 30 right now.
30.
Oh, wow.
God, we got 63 people in the chat. Come on.
Somebody's excited. They're like, hey, 30, I've got a good chance.
Come on.
We need to get some more people clicking on that thumbs up button too. We got 63 in here and we got 39 thumbs up.
Oh, I better click it.
I'm looking at that Dropbox, Lee, and apparently, like, some of my personal stuff has been saving to that Dropbox. There's like a receipt to my electric bill payment in there.
Maybe she just sent you the bill. If y'all could get that paid right away, just confirmation, we'd appreciate it. Okay.
Like, what is that doing?
And if that goes through well, we'll send you our house payment next month. Okay.
I'll say I don't see that in there. I just see all the B
I
stuff.
just deleted it because I'm like,
Okay.
he doesn't need to. He doesn't need my receipt for my electric bill.
So I'm just curious, where everybody's at. We're all in different, little bit different parts. Most of y'all are down south. We're up in the Midwest, but is everybody under a pretty heavy nectar flow right now?
We are down here in South Louisiana.
Yeah, Ricky too, and Brian said it was.
Yeah, it's coming in. I wouldn't say it's like insanely heavy, but it's coming. They're filling up the supers, but privet has opened. Tulip poplar is beginning to open. It's weird on the privet, to be honest with you. Maybe you guys have noticed this before, but I went to our privet hedge, and you see bees, some bees, but it's not like it was last year where it was just engulfed with bees. And then I'll go to the other privet hedge, down the street, whatever, and there's not one single bee on them. So I don't know.
Yeah, Keith said North Carolina, that's ramping up down there. And I'd say probably Steve would say the same thing. They're both here in North Carolina, about middle Piedmont area. So
That right there is your privet there, Brian?
Yeah. It's my backyard. Yeah. I think there's a bee. Is there a bee on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there.
wow.
That's one of my girls right there. Yeah. Isn't she pretty?
Now, is that the Japanese privet or the Chinese privet?
Chinese.
Or do you know? Okay. Because I know some of the ones that Bob was showing before, he keeps on saying the Japanese privet, and I got a picture of that and scanned everything, and it does come up Chinese or Japanese privet, what he has. But what we're showing down here is the Chinese privet.
Yeah.
The only difference I was seeing, the Japanese privet looks more like a regular tree. It has a bigger trunk to it, and it's more of a shiny, waxy leaf on it. But they both produce basically the same flowers and quite a bit of nectar.
How many we have now, Lee?
We're up to 32.
32.
So, Brian, you said that your tulip poplar was just beginning to open.
That's right. Yeah. Just beginning to bloom. Yeah.
So our season down here has been a little bit screwed. We had some really warm days, a few chillier days, a lot of warm days. And we are actually having our tulip poplar, my tulip poplar in my own tree, open up here in St. Louis, Missouri, or in the outskirts of St. Louis, Missouri, about a week-ish ago.
Oh, wow.
Which is really early. We don't typically get that open up before our black locust, and a black locust has started to open up in certain areas of St. Louis. So that's kind of odd. And it seems a little bit backwards. So you being that much further south, I'm really surprised to hear that yours have not opened, but mine actually have. So that's, it's kind of awkward.
I can't explain it, and last year it's like that's the only thing we really had, because we had a awful freeze to come through the latter part of March, and it just, anything that was blooming, it just killed. But the tulip poplar, of course, came in a little bit later, and so you had that darker honey with the tulip poplar last year. This year, I don't know, it's kind of weird too. I was expecting us to be a little bit further along, than where we are now.
All right, let's go ahead, Lee, and let's go ahead and let it roll.
Let it spin. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh my goodness! Look at that.
All right.
Hey, everybody's a winner.
And I think Tom and Melissa said something about giving a hat away also. So
so we have a couple different colors here. I don't know what does everybody like. This one's kind of this computer screen kind of skews a little bit. It's kind of like a greenish tan, and then obviously this one being a blue. These are kind of the trucker style hats. So I don't know what does everybody think, blue or the other one? What would you all like to see? We'll give one of these away.
No one's commenting.
No.
Tan, I see.
It's usually about a 10-second delay between what we're saying and when they see it.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm seeing a blue. I'm seeing a tan.
Yep.
Or do you want to do winner's choice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, winner's choice. 100%. Yeah, they can get whatever they want.
All right,
I've got either color.
I'm going to drop this in there for another giveaway. That way it don't automatically enter the other entries that were in there. So you want to type in the comments, #VIA.
There you go. Steve Amos asked if we weren't going to do one ourselves. So there you go. There's your chance to win it, Steve. Win or choose. That's right. That's right, Charlie. Whichever color, I've got either one. I'll send out either one. So we actually have a little bit of privet here, not quite as much as what you all might have down further south. And Lee and I were talking, I don't know, maybe a weekish or so ago. Might have been last week. Anyway, I started looking at our privet because I think, Lee, when we had spoke last, and it escapes me, but I want to say it might have been last week, you said that yours were starting to open up there and they put out a lot of nectar. I've got a couple of those that are right at the entrance to the gate to our shop area. And I see some really nice buds on them, but they're not opening up yet. So I'm thinking probably if our weather stays pretty good, I'm thinking maybe more like a week.
No, ain't bad. Yeah, a lot of mine I've done had some start kind of turning a darker color and starting to wilt down, but I still had some other bushes that are starting to bloom out.
Okay.
But not quite as much as we had.
Yeah.
Keith, I put my email in there if you want to email me for that hat, and if not, you can get a hold of Lee. Or get my number from him or Tim and Hannah or whoever. We'll get your hat to you. So
Yeah, we're up to 23.
23.
Hey, Ricky,
I
could
didn't-
you come down and pick up my hat so you can send that one off too? Would it be all right?
Yeah, I could, So I'd like to go down and visit Keith and see his bees. So he's not that far away. I could definitely do that.
What were?
Yeah, show that hat again. Paul don't know what he entered to win.
It's a honeybee's hat. One or the other. You get a choice.
Choice
Winner's
of only one.
So what's everybody's plans with their bees this weekend?
Yeah.
Hopefully, if I'm off Sunday, I'll be pulling honey and getting ready to add some. I'll probably add the wet supers back on right now since there's still nectar coming in. Now, if our nectar wasn't still coming in, it was kind of going into a dearth, I probably wouldn't put a wet super back on the hive. Then I'd take a chance of having all the robin. Usually, if it's going into a dearth, once I pull the supers, anything that might be left, I just put my supers out in front of all the hives, let them come out and rob what little bit residues left in there. And that kind of dries it out. Now it does tear the wax up just a little bit, but they'll repair it on the next flow.
We did the exact same thing. Sometimes it freaks my neighbors out just a little bit, though.
Until you move them behind our fence where they can't see them, then it's like everything's magically okay. But if they see all those bees on the super, it's like, what's going on? I move them behind a fence so they can't see behind, and 5 feet away, and everything's fine again.
Yeah.
Now I know they said some states I don't think you can put the supers out like that and just let the bees rob them out.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before too.
Now, don't quote me, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Tennessee may have been one of them.
I know.
I think Tennessee has a lot of really strict rules. Like from what Cayman's said before on his videos, like you can't sell used equipment, I guess, unless it has living colonies in it. And
it's like Alabama. I don't think you even supposed to bring in outside comb from another state in.
You're not.
Or at least don't get caught with it.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, I mean, since you can't bring in outside comb, is that just comb, or can you buy boxes that has bees in it from outside the state, or does it have to be within the state?
We have a comb law. Alabama has a comb law. Now, can you buy a package of bees? Yes, absolutely. Can you? Okay. I guess you can buy bees, but you cannot. Now, keep in mind too, from what I understand, you can, if you are bringing a nuke in, you have to get it inspected.
Okay.
Okay. You can get it inspected. So, yeah. And there's, some people, they don't know, and then they'll track in a nuke or two. And, and that's what we got to be careful with, because it can introduce American foul brood and European.
Now, do y'all have to register your bees in Alabama too?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Louisiana, we have to register. Even if you have just one colony as a hobbyist, it still has to be registered. Now, you don't have to pay anything until you have 10 or more colonies.
No, Alabama, I think there's a fee, like 1 to 5, there's a fee, and then 5 to 10, there's a fee. So
I think ours is 1 to 9, no fee, but once you hit 10, then it's like $5 a year.
Yeah,
but the most you're going to pay is like $50 a year, but that's if you have 500 plus colonies. So I mean, if you got that many colonies, $50 ain't nothing.
Yeah, it's nominal, and it kind of gives back to the state too, and it's a good thing. Now, you'll have a state. You have the state inspector may give you a call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just keep that, and they love to call me. So yeah. So
Now, as far as like Louisiana, as far as our registration, we don't have to be inspected unless we're selling like packages or nukes or queens or something like that and selling outside the state. But just what I'm doing to make honey or anything, there's no inspection required. Now I can call and request an inspection if I think something's wrong, and they'll do that.
yeah. No, we encourage our members in our club to go ahead and have them registered. Just the right thing to do.
Well, that and the good thing about it, if you're registered and say an apiary 5 miles down the road from you gets an infection, they know everybody that's in that immediate area and they can contact you and let you know, hey, keep an eye out for this. Somebody right down the road has caught something. We want to make sure you don't get it too.
That's right.
That way they know if it's spreading or if it's contained.
That's correct.
We were both clicking on that one.
Yeah, we was.
Yeah, we lost Tom and Melissa there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I just sent him a message. I figured, Melissa hit him in the head with the computer, and that's why it's off right now.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So I a couple of my splits this year. I moved to. We have some land in Tallahassee, Florida, and so I carry. Of course, I can. They don't really have a comb law, so. But while I was there, I'll be doggone if I didn't catch 2 swarms.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah. So there you go. Now I got 4 hives and right outside of Tallahassee. So
how many?
Now,
viewers do
if
have?
you were to put those in a package box and leave the comb, you would be able to bring them into the state, or how would that work?
I don't know how to interpret that. I'm assuming yes. Yes.
As long as you didn't bring the comb with it.
The comb, right? That's a good question, Lee. I need to look that up. That's a real good question. Maybe somebody may know what that law is in Alabama.
Redfish is asking how many inspectors does Alabama have?
Yeah.
I think Alabama has 2 inspectors. There's one kind of central Alabama, and then there's one a little bit further south. Those are the only 2 I know of.
Steve is saying North Carolina has 6 if all positions are filled.
Yeah.
Louisiana, I couldn't tell you how many we got. No, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think that might have been what happened, Ricky. I think she
Yep,
hit him
that's
with
what
a
happened.
computer. He's laying on the floor by her feet right now.
Knocked him out.
She's still reaching
No.
down there and kicking him.
Be quiet. Quit talking.
See?
No, our internet all of a sudden just went. So I'm actually hotspotting the laptop for my phone since she offed him.
Okay, guys, I'm back.
No, all of a sudden our internet just went out. So I'm hotspotting for my phone. So if it lags a little bit, that's why. We'll see if
That's
the internet.
pretty good.
Seems good so far. Yeah, let's see. We're up
You
to
say
28.
Did you say split?
Oh my gosh.
We got 57 in the chat.
Yep.
So,
57 in the chat and 28 entries for a hat.
So what's everybody doing with their bees this weekend?
well, I tell you, if my boys are still in the chat, okay, you're coming home and you're gonna help this old man out because we're adding supers. So if not, I know you guys are in college. You got to study. It's probably exam week. If not,
Wow.
Don't ask your mom for money. Don't ask your dad. So, you're cut off. You're cut off.
That's right.
That
I've
sounds
got
like
20
conversations about
colonies that are got queens coming back from being mated. So it's going to be a very busy Sunday for me here on the farm.
Yeah, Brian, you ain't supposed to tell them that until they get there. They might not show up now.
Yeah, he's right.
I got to get them here somehow. I got to get them here.
All right, we ready to go on this drawing?
Yeah, let it roll.
Here we go. Ooh. Ooh. Oh!
You want to drop our email in there?
What color hat do you want, Redfish?
Yeah. What do you
Put it in the comment.
Alabama boy.
You want it with Tom's blood on it or not? That's the question.
Yeah. Bloody or not bloody? Tan.
Tan.
Yeah. Good choice. Good choice, Redfish.
Yeah.
Melissa's going to put our email in there. Shoot me an email, and we'll get it sent out here this week.
If there's anybody on the chat that would like to come on to the live stream and do something like Brian Lee's done tonight and just talk a little bit about your bees, you can reach out to Lee or me, and we'll try to get you guys on. We got a couple other people coming up, so really want to bring the group together and learn a little bit about everybody. So I think that's important, and we're going to learn some stuff. Like Brian Lee asked a lot of good questions tonight about his bees, so we all got to hear what he was going through, and got to give our opinions on it. So,
Hey Lee, can you put our email address in there? For some reason, it's not letting us post comments. I don't know if it's because I'm the way I'm
Since
hot
you beat
spotting
Tom
or
up,
what?
it won't let you.
My guess is
Yeah, I guess so.
probably Ricky banned you is what happened.
Probably.
Clicked you out.
if you beat him up,
Yeah, we're brothers. We're sticking together. Can't
Yeah.
do that.
I mean, our email address is really hard. It's viahoneybees@gmail.com. So
yeah.
just email us and let us give us your address, Redfish.
All right, I just sent that address there for you, Redfish.
So I have a question for everybody. So I've heard people say this before in the past, that if in your apiary, if all your colonies are about the same strength and they're getting to the point of swarming, you can see swarming like 3 days in a row, like one after the other. What's everybody's thought on that? Just curious to see what everybody's thought is on that.
You're talking like a pre-swarm, Tom? Is that what you're talking about, or?
I'm sorry, say it one more time. It kind of broke up.
Yeah, is it like a pre-swarm, what you're saying, 3 days in advance? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just thinking that colonies that you may have in the same yard they're all kind of on that verge of swarming. You can have them consecutively or sometimes all on the same day, based upon, if you have maybe a rainy day or something like that, and then you get a nice day, they'll hold off on those rainy or those cooler days maybe. But if you get to a point where you've got bad weather and then all of a sudden you get one or a handful of days of decent weather in there.
I hadn't had the issue of that yet as far as like multiple swarming. Normally, if I see them starting to get full, even if we don't have a flow going on, either I might pull a little frame out just to try to make a walk-away split, or I'll just throw an empty super on there to give them a little extra room to start working and doing something, just so they don't feel crowded. But I hadn't had that issue, so I couldn't really tell you on that.
I've got.
It's interesting that sometimes there's like that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lee.
I've got a number that I went through today. I've got a couple of hives. I think they're on that verge. They're making cups profusely. I'm seeing a lot of drone brood. And what scares me is that I'm starting to see some backfilling in the bottom brood box. I wouldn't say they're honey bound, but there's a couple of frames. Remember, I'm running 8 frames, so I got to stay ahead of them. They're just bringing in pollen and they're just storing it. And so what I tried to do, this is what I found out in the last 4 years. It's almost like it don't matter what I do. If they've got that in their gene, the swarm, they're just going to go. So I'm trying to add space. So I'll pull that comb out and I'll put in, if I have some comb left, I'll put it in. I'm just trying to add space, or I'll equalize but right now, all my boxes, they're just, I probably got 6 frames of brood in each box. They're exploding right now.
Mm-hmm.
Some stage of brood. Okay. Eggs, larvae, cat brood, capping.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to give them space. And so I'm going to go through them again this weekend, hopefully with my boys as we're supering. I may have to just make some splits. I just may have to, it's inevitable. If I want my honey and eat it too, right? If I want my honey and keep my bees, that's what I'm gonna have to do. So those are the things I'm looking at right now. I'm not seeing, well, except for the 2 I saw today, I'm not seeing, they're drawing out, swarm cells or queen cells or anything, but they are making cups. Mm-hmm. And I've got a couple of hives, as I said earlier, the drones, they're making a bunch of drone brood. And to me, that's a tendency for them to swarm as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I'm going to throw something else out there too that I have heard recently from a commercial guy. Has anybody ever tried to? Okay, let's just say, I'll give you for example. Brian, Melissa, and I also run 8-frame equipment. That's all that we have besides 2 10-frame apimays. So 8-frame equipment, and we run a double brood box. We don't usually do single. There's a couple of them I've done like that before. I don't care for it for myself because it requires a little bit more punctuality to manage them. I feel like the double brood box gives me a little bit more leeway is kind of what happens there. So when the nectar flow for us comes on, sometimes it can happen in a hurry, like just one day that's not, and then a day or 2 later, they're trying to plug out the brood chamber. And when they started building swarm cells, we'll start taking them all out. We actually put some of those cuts in those cells off, put them in our incubator, and that gives us some other options too to incubate and to bring other virgin queens in case something doesn't requeen, or we want to requeen a colony that has a queen that's kind of failing. A lot of different things. So sometimes whenever, and I've done this last week, we started adding supers on last week. And I'll tell you kind of where I was going with that. I had 3 days in a row, and I've caught each one of them out of the same yard. They must have gotten a little bit ahead of me, even though sometimes if we don't find the queen to move her, we'll take out all the cells and maybe just leave one just on the whim that potentially, even though they're really strong colonies, they could have actually had a swarm off of them already. I didn't think that they did, and I'm okay with them requeening some of those colonies too. So I'm not solely hung up on just honey production, so that's not my main focus and goal. But what I did do was we put supers on, and I noticed that 3 days in a row, I had a swarm consecutively. And yesterday was the biggest one. They're all big. None of these swarms are secondary swarms. They're all way too big to be a secondary swarm. Now, I didn't look for any of the queens, any of them. I just got them in boxes and then left them set for the period before I moved them to a different yard, just so they change locations. But I had a commercial guy say that you can often have better success by giving them room, not as a super on top, but actually adding another box underneath the brood boxes. Has anybody ever done that? And if they have, what is your success on it? What do you guys know about it? I'm curious to know, because this is the first time I've ever heard of that. I'm only a 7-year beekeeper, but curious to know if anybody's ever tried that, or they understand this to be the gospel when it comes to beekeeping, is putting an empty box underneath of them as opposed to putting supers on top.
I haven't tried it myself, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe Blake Shook was talking about that in a live the other day. When he sees some colonies wanting to swarm, he'll pick the brood box up and put a super under the brood box.
So he'll actually put a super under there then?
Yeah. Or another box, but he was talking about a super. But if you running deeps all together and you put a deep under there, they just look at it as another brood box. It don't matter if it's brood or super. They just see more room as they coming into the colony, coming into the hive.
Sure. There's been times before that if I didn't have any supers and I seen them starting to plug something out, and I had some extra deeps on and like some undrawn frames, I'll just throw a deep on top of them to buy me some time. I did that last week, and in short of a week, one of the colonies, particular that I was really impressed with, actually drew me out an entire 8 frames of comb on plastic foundation all the way across, and was filling it with nectar. So I can then take and I pull that back off later on. And then, once if they start to fill it with nectar, I can pull that off later on, and then maybe even freeze those frames and throw them downstairs at my house. And if I need to give those back to a colony, like later in the season, or one that didn't build up heavily enough or needed some food, I can just give them those frames right back, so that they've got some extra resources, and maybe it might help me from having to feed as much, or get them some quick stored honey in the colony.
DC's saying whenever he sees his getting close, he'll put a second super under the brood box.
Okay.
Which, I mean, when they first coming back into the hive, when they fly in, they're going to see all that extra space as soon as they're coming in and think that they got more room, versus if you put another deep on top of them.
Mm-hmm. So I would ask DC, do you run a single brood box management or a double already? I'm just curious to know what you do there. Yeah, this was something that I just heard the other day, so I thought I would bring it up and see if anybody else had the idea or have used that technique. That very well could confuse them.
It kind of makes sense. So, you're just adding more to the brood chamber, right? The brood area. So rather than equalizing or taking away, and, it kind of makes sense to me. That's what I'm thinking, shucks, I'm running 8 frames. Maybe that's what I need to do, is run 3 deeps.
Now, say if you talking about equalizing, if you do have another colony or two that is a little bit weak, rather than putting that super under the strong hive, you could take a couple of frames out and equalize to another one, and then put some empty frames back in, or just some drawn comb.
Yeah.
And give the queen more room to lay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you miss where I said we have 60 splits? We don't have any weak hives.
Right. That's the problem there.
The splits didn't even weaken them. They're still swarming.
Well, I've only had this happen that I can tell 3 times this year. I think I've been pretty good at being on top of it, but I think there's 3 of them. And if I remember right, when Melissa and I were making splits, we were getting overwhelmed in this yard that initially had 25 to 30 colonies in it. So and I think we ended up spending, her and I both working this yard together, spent 4 hours in it, breaking them down, making manipulations, changing things up, splits, things like that. So it was getting to be long, and that was getting after my work day too. I'd already been out in the landscaping field doing my work, and I was doing that in the evening. So
that'd be a 150.
Yeah,
that's where we're at. 153, I think.
Now we're gonna start tightening back up again.
We have a member in our club, and that's exactly what she does. She doesn't run excluders, queen excluders. She just keeps stacking on boxes, and she has a picture. I'm not exaggerating. I think she probably had 12 boxes, 10 frames, and I was like, she had a step ladder to get up to. Now, I mean, I'm afraid something's going to happen. It's going to topple over, but maybe it was a picture for, but maybe she was kidding around with the picture, but that's what she does. And when I said, well, how do you harvest honey? And she says, I'll just pull from the edges, let them go up as much as they can, and she'll just pull from the edges. So
yeah. No, that's a great.
There you go. Yeah.
That's one of mine right now. Now, my number one hive a couple of years ago, I had 5 supers on it, and they were still bringing it in. I had to start pulling supers off, extracting them, and putting new supers that were just waxed foundation in there. And they ended up drawing out 3 more supers and filling them. So that year I got 8 supers off that one hive.
Goodness gracious.
Wow, yeah.
And that's Ricky and Miss Ruth's favorite hive, my number one.
That's Ruth's favorite hive.
It's always my biggest hive.
Did you run a queen excluder?
No, I didn't have a queen excluder there.
They weren't that bad though when we got into them.
Nah, they really wouldn't when you get in. I just find that the bigger the hive is, it's not that they're that much more aggressive than a smaller hive. They just have more defenders in there. So you're more likely to get stung a couple times by a hive that has 80,000 bees in it versus a hive that has 20,000 bees.
Yeah.
Now we run queen excluders because when we want to harvest honey, we want to go and just pull all the supers at one time and not have to wait for any brood to hatch out that she may have laid in any supers. So that enables us to keep her out of those boxes so we can just pull honey when we go in there to pull honey.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to go back to any yards and, oh, we got to wait for this one. We got to wait for that one.
Now, looking at the video that Brian sent me earlier today, if all of these frames are looking like this in this hive, he's going to end up doing a split or making some good honey on this colony, because I don't know how good you can see on the screen here, but it looks like every one of these cells has an egg in it, and she's still laying more now.
I don't know why that's so cool.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How many times have we seen this and you just, it never gets old?
That's a nice looking queen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is she's not bashful. Sometimes you get queens that as soon as the light hits them or you start looking at them, they'll start running around the frames. She's not even missing she's going to town there. I mean, just not missing anything.
That's awesome.
Yep, she's on a mission, no question.
That's a great queen. You should make some more queens off of that one, Brian.
And that was when I made my splits. That's a queen that kept the queen cell out, put it in my incubator, and stuck it in a queen castle. And then she grew, and I had to put her into a 5-frame nuke. And now she's in a 8-frame box. So I got good genes with that one. Good genes.
I think so. Yeah. One of the most annoying things is when you open a colony and all the bees want to run around. It's so hard to find anything whenever they're just running around kind of frantic like that. But then you have, a colony like that where the queen wasn't even phased by the light hitting her. She just still going to town and doing her job. I think that's a good trait people should look for in a colony.
It's working again. So this weekend, I think we're good on our hives right now. We have 1 yard we need to put more supers on. Mm-hmm. But Saturday we have a cutout to do, and then Monday we have another cutout to do. So I've been getting a lot of phone calls about swarms and bees in houses these last 2 weeks.
Now, with all them calls and all them bees you got to pull out, are you bringing a camera with you this time?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I always have a camera. I always record these things.
Let me rephrase that. Do you plan on?
I've just always posted the videos on our Facebook page and not on YouTube. So if you'd like to see our videos, we have a plethora of videos. They're just on our Facebook page, not on our YouTube page.
We need them on YouTube.
Yeah.
I know. We're getting into video making season, so we'll get there. I can just post all my old videos onto our YouTube channel. How about that?
There you go. That'll work.
We need some more education from Mr. Lee on video editing and things of that nature so that you can put up a nice product.
Depends on what software you're using.
Whatever came on my lap.
Yeah, Rain, I'm still backed up on horizontal hives. I mean, we're backed up almost past July now. So, I'd be glad to get your name in the list if that's something you'd like to do. If you want a horizontal, but you still have the flow hive as an option, the Lance, and some other hives also. But we're working on this new building, and it's just one thing after another. So if y'all will pray that Ruth will let me quit my job, then things might speed up a little faster. But right now we're backed up. So.
Well, just take it one day at a time, because I understand where you're at with being pulled in a lot of directions.
Yeah. That's like the other day, I come home and Amber's, playing here in the house. I've got hives to build and the winds are blowing. I just bought her a brand new cot and, I got all this beekeeping stuff to do also around the farm. It's like, we're going to go fly kites. we're going to spend some family time. We're going to go fly some kites. And that's what we did.
That's
we went
good.
out and had a good time. So that's some things we got to do as a good family to do that. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's a great picture of the hills there, the barn in the background.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty. Is that a kite stuck in the tree? Or were you flying
Well, it's not stuck, but it was getting close to those power lines. I was getting worried. So it's just things in life, you got your beekeeping and, but there's other things that kind of takes precedence sometimes. And having Amber out there and get to spend some time with her was priceless.
Definitely. Kids grow up very quickly.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
We told our boys they were going to have to move back into the same bedroom together so we could take over one of their bedrooms and turn it into our studio.
So there you go.
Put them bunk beds in there.
Well, the funny thing is they had, so when they shared a room, they had bunk beds, right? And the bunk bed was still there until probably 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Our one son who has that stayed in that room. He finally took the bunk beds apart. So we still have the bunk beds. They just have to put them back together. But we got vetoed. They were not all for that option. So
well, tell them to share the same room, or you can put a little one of those little metal sheds out back that's like 8 foot by 8 foot.
I'm not going to put a shed in my yard. I refuse to do it. I have a nice little view out of my backyard, and I'm not going to put a shed back there. So Melissa just needs to buy me some property so I can put a building out there.
Yeah, she asked about how large that horizontal can be, and we can make them as large as you want to. It's just you got to be a little careful when you get past 33 frames. You start getting some cupping of the hive, so it takes some really good lumber so that doesn't happen. And it's a little harder build, but we can make them about as large as you want to. I think the biggest we made was about 72 inches. I think it was a monster, but it ended up being a beautiful hive when it's all said and done. So she was very happy with it.
30 frames is a good size. That's pretty large.
It is 30 frames is, you start thinking about that's 3 deeps, right? And a little bit more actually. So, when after the honey flow is over with, you don't really need that much. And with a horizontal hive, especially if you're a backyard beekeeper, I'm going out and getting 3 or 4 frames and extracting those 3 or 4 frames. And I like to do that here on the farm because I can get the honey that's, is black locust or poplar or whatever, and really get those flavors that I'm looking for. But I'm running, we're running 8 or 9 horizontal hives here on the farm. So, I'm going to getting 3 or 4 frames from each colony and doing those extractions. So
that was one reason I kept my little 2-frame tangential extractor. That way, if I just want to pull a couple frames here or there, I can pop one in there and just hand crank on versus loading up a 20-frame data ant and then having to clean all of that out.
Yeah.
Because you should have seen me yesterday.
Yeah.
I think my little shed that I got from my honey stuff is like, I can't remember if it's 8 by 10 or 10 by 12. I just got all my honey stuff thrown in. Well, Renee was still at work. So here I am trying to bear hug a 20-frame extractor, pick it up, walk out of a door that is about 2 inches too narrow for the leg. So I'm having to tilt sideways and walk down 2 steps to get outside with it so I can pressure wash everything nice and clean. That was fun. But luckily, I waited till she got back home to put it back in there.
What a nightmare.
So we use our horizontal hives, we put 3 10-frame colonies in them, and we use them basically for resources. To keep them that size, we just keep pulling stuff out of them all the time. And those are the ones that I do that jar comb honey on top of also. So that's kind of their honey super is those jar combs.
Which those jars are getting ready to go in here pretty soon, Ricky. They need to go in here pretty quick.
Probably tomorrow or Saturday.
I think he's probably making some splits from that colony,
Mm-hmm.
From that 10 frame. You probably ain't got many bees in there with all those splits you're making.
We didn't make any splits from those ones actually. Yeah. So those 2 made it through the winter. The white one, we only had 2 colonies and 1 on each side. They both made it through the winter, but the one side, the queen must have not made it through the winter, so we had to put a new queen in there. So they're slowly building back up now.
Mhm.
But otherwise, because last year, I think from that side, we stole like 14 frames of brood out of that, and to use in different hives or to make splits with and whatnot.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she passed away.
Mm.
It actually got to a point. I think we had a small little nuke that was that overwintered. There wasn't a lot of bees in there, and then there was
Oh,
still
that's right.
plenty
You
of
took
there
the
were still
queen.
plenty of bees in the horizontal. So I said, you know what? I pulled the queen off and I just put her on top of that other frames and I let her walk in. And I thought, we'll see what happens. She's still alive.
Yep.
So
There.
that's how that worked
Still
out.
kicking.
I figured I had nothing to lose, and the other colony I knew was pretty hopelessly queenless, and I figured they'd probably accept anything. And then they did. It wasn't a problem for them. She started laying right away.
You got to keep these guys in line somehow, Steve.
Well, guys, I'm going to call it there tonight. I want to say very special thanks to Brian Lee for the hats, for his family being great with getting them the horizontal hive. For Spanky and Tom and Melissa and Lee, I appreciate you guys being on here. Most of all, you folks in the chat. I'm learning so much with these chats each time we're on here, and I hope you guys are also. So, anyway, just want to say big thank you and God bless.
Yeah. Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
Good night, guys.